Hey everybody, welcome to video number 31 in the UE5 vehicle tutorial series. This is a bit of a bonus video. I wasn't really planning on recording this, so I'm just gonna wing it. I was gonna do this just for myself, and after some thought figured it would make for a good video. What we're gonna do today is separate the wing to allow the player to swap them out or just flat out remove them from the cars. And also, for your entertainment, we are going to mess a bit with morph targets to allow the players to customize the wing itself. So first part would be to, first of all, hide the wheel, select the car body and separate the wing from it. Now we'll use the materials here to make the selection easier, I guess. So right now if you go into wireframe, you can select paint 2 here, use control key to deselect everything but the wing. Right click, separate selection. I will do the same for the other. See if I click polygon here, this one is paint 3, so let's select it. Oh, how convenient. Let's use the control key again to unselect everything that is not the wing. There you go. Right click, separate selection. And I will select these two and join them. Actually, join. Control J. Cool. Now the wing is separate. Let's name it accordingly. And then we'll do two things. I don't want the wing to be attached to the vehicle origin, because if we ever want to simulate physics on it to make the player able to rip it off in a crash, we'll have to attach it to the vehicle with a physics constraints. And they don't work too well, physics constraints, when the object that you're applying physics to is too far away from its pivot. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use an empty. So add empty, where would that be? Empty right here. And there's a bunch of them. Doesn't matter which one you choose, it's just a visual representation inside of Blender. So you can use whatever you want. I like to use a single arrow. And we are going to place it just to create kind of an anchor point for the wing. Oh, and we're going to want that centered onto the vehicle. Something like this. And what an empty does in Blender is when you add it to the hierarchy, it'll create a bone for you in the Unreal Editor. So we'll call that wing anchor. And we'll use a shift drag onto the body here to attach it to the body. That's going to create a bone for us, or socket if you'd rather call it that. And then with the wing anchor selected, hit Shift S and click cursor to selected to place the 3D cursor at the anchor point. And then select the wing, right click, set origin to 3D cursor. And there you have it. Now what's left to do is to place the wing at the origin of your scene, so that when you export it separately, it'll have its pivot point located where you want it. So let's go ahead and zero out everything. And you can also see here I forgot these little screw heads. So let's Control Z all of that. Go back into edit mode, select these. These are black material slot. Let's go ahead and unselect. Actually, there's a lot of stuff on that channel. So let's do the opposite here and only select the screw heads. I think that'll be easier in this specific case. You can hit Control plus to expand selection, but as you can see, that model here isn't really great. A lot of loose vertices that aren't attached, so that doesn't work very well. That right here though should do it. just hide the wing, really. Make sure you don't forget any polygons. And I think we are good to go. Those would be the screw heads. So again, separate selection. Hit Alt H to unhide everything. And join those to the wing using Control J. There you go. Now that's fixed. And we can move the wing back to 0, 0, 0. Okay, great. Now before I forget about it, let's go ahead and select everything here that has to do with the car. Why is that wing anchor kind of in two places here? I guess we'll see if that works anyway. So select everything here. Heck, select the wing anchor in both places, I guess, just to be safe. I don't know why you did that. That's kind of weird. Whatever. And let's re-export that. So export FBX. Now I have made a preset here to make my life easier. So it is set to only export deselected. It's got empty, armature, and mesh. Bake animation is disabled. Armature here, you want to untick add leaf bone. And in geometry here, you want to select face to get your normal and tangents exported as well. And that would be the Porsche GT3 RS. Let's go ahead and export that. Re-import it in the engine. Make sure our new wing anchor bone was added properly, because we're going to need that. Okay, let's have a look at it. Skeleton 3, wing anchor. There you go. Now the empty became a bone, and you can use that as an anchor point, ironically. So, great. Back to Blender. I guess you can hide everything except for the wing that we're going to be working on. So select the wheel, Control I to select everything else, H to hide. So you've got nothing but the wing showing. And let's go ahead and play with morph targets a little bit. So you're going to want to come here into the Data tab, create your first shape keys, because that's what they're called in Blender. And that will be your base shape, the one that you're going to be adding offsets to. So right away, let's create another one. Let's call it width. And now you can start modifying the shape. When I say modifying the shape, I mean mostly the proportion, locations of things. You don't want to be adding new geometry. You don't want to subdivide things. You want the poly count, vertex count, edge count, everything to stay the same. You want to just move things around, okay? Very important. And so for the width, what I'm going to do here is just stretch out the wing. What's the best way to do this so it doesn't look too funny? Oh, that's neat. I can select these two only. Okay. I don't want to modify the brackets. So let's go ahead and select those little flaps one by one and move them. Let's say, how about 0.0505 meters. That's not a whole lot. Let's go 0.1. Okay, well, that'll be a pretty big wing, so that's fine. So again, select 0.3, deselect everything except for this one, move it 0.3 meters. Cool. Now how about you, 0.2? Cool. Now stretch that on the y-axis. So SY, and just roughly make it match the new location here of your flaps, or whatever those might be called. I'm sure they got a name, but I don't know really the terminology or nomenclature. Call it whatever you will. And okay, now you can see as soon as you leave edit mode, it comes back to normal. That's because the shape key here, by default, its value is 0. Now you can see if you change that from 0 to 1, you can actually affect the width of the wing. And that's exactly how it's going to work when you import it into the Unreal Engine as well. In your skeletal mesh editor, you will have float values, which are going to range from -1 to 1, versus in Blender, as they are 0 to 1. And so in Unreal, you have the option to affect this negatively as well, which is kind of interesting. It's something you're going to want to keep in mind. Actually, just for testing purposes here in range minimum, if I set -1 instead of 0, yes, that's exactly what that's going to look like in Unreal. Because by default in Unreal, you get -1 to 1 and not 0 to 1. So you can actually use your morph target in both ways. Now, the other thing you can do is, again, add yet another morph target on top of all that. Let's call that one, how about flap height? Again, go in edit mode. Use the material slots here to select this. Unselect these. And then you can scale these up on the z-axis if you want, by using SZ to scale them up. Hit tab again, you can see once more nothing changes until you go ahead and change the flap height here in the morph target. And they're all additives, meaning you can modify more than one at the same time. Cool. Now I'll be adding 2 more, really just for the fun of it. Sorry about that. Forgot to add a third. This one will be just the overall height. And we'll go ahead and make it. I'll try to keep the same angle, if you will, just for aesthetics. That looks alright. And now add a, lastly, I'd like to be able to adjust the angle of the wing, which in real life would add more drag, but also more downforce as you tilt it more aggressively. So how about I just call it tilt instead? That's going to be a tough one. Actually, not so tough. I'm overthinking it. There you go. RY. There you go. And now you have a fourth slider that will adjust the tilt of your wing. So you can now adjust the tilt, the overall height, the flap height, and the width of your wing in both directions. Also, I guess the height, if you set this to minimum -1 instead of minimum 0, you could also adjust the height negatively, which is going to look a little funny because it really wasn't meant for that, but you know, -0.6 is as far as you're going to go. What happens with the tilt if I do the same thing though? Oh yes, you can tilt it backward and make an airplane. And so as you can see, morph targets are something you can play with a lot. Some people would go as far as telling you can use that to animate certain things, you know, using a timeline or whatever to adjust the morph target value. And I think that's pretty neat, but we're not going to do that. So for now, let's just export that to the engine. So file, export, FBX. As you can see, still using the UE5 preset here. So selected object, empty armature mesh, blah blah blah. And we're going to call this one GT3RS underscore wing. Actually wing 01, just in case we want to make more of those. And back into the engine here, Porsche meshes. I really should create a folder for parts, and then another folder for wings, because you might have bumpers, roofs, bonnets, side skirts, exhaust, you know. And in here, again, import that as a skeletal mesh, otherwise I don't think you'll be able to use the morph targets, although I could be wrong. I should probably test that right now. Do I have an option for morph targets on a static mesh? And I do not. I was right. You have to use a skeletal mesh here to be able to import morph targets. Hit import. Okay. Alright, so now you have a skeleton, which, you know, you can use the same skeleton for every wheel, every wing mesh. And you can see right here on the right, you have your morph targets. Let's assign it some materials. So paint 2. Let me open up the Porsche models just to make sure I assign same materials everywhere. So paint 2 was okay. Black I know was just flat color black. And for paint 3, come on now. Okay. Okay, cool. Alright, go back into your Porsche. You can see now we do not have a wing anymore. And those wheels are just humongous. That's fine. Add a new skeletal mesh component. Let's call him SM Wing. Now here you can choose a parent socket. That's where the wing anchor is going to go. Now you can see the pivot moved to the proper location. So let's assign it a mesh, which is our There you go. Now, because this is a separate mesh, the color changes we apply to the car won't apply to it. So we need to modify here the function we use to modify colors, which would be set primary paint color. We're basically going to want to do that for every additional meshes that we want affected by the vehicle color. So let's go ahead and set SM wing, make sure it's not empty or something. I guess is valid will do. Because you might want to leave that empty, so if that's valid, we'll do the exact same thing as we do here for the vehicle mesh. But we'll do it for the wing. There you go. Now let's do that also for the secondary color. If it exists, that is good. Sweet. Now immediately before we do anything, let's just make sure I didn't do any mistake. And I'm pretty sure it did. That one here should be the same color as the roof. And it's giving me an error. Set primary paint color. Okay. Oh. Oops. There you go. Sweet. Okay, got it. It's giving me an error here because I do not have a paint 1 material slot on the wing, so it's not finding any. And so here, if I wanted to get rid of the error, I'd have to run a branch like that. And I guess I'm going to do that for both of them. Not that it's actually going to change anything, just because I don't like having errors pop up all the time. And then when there's an actual error, you have to kind of dig through the list of errors to find where it's coming from. I just don't like that, so that's better. Okay, and now on bake and play here, you can adjust parameters for the wing. And you cannot do it in the event construct because Epic Games has taken measures to prevent you from doing that. You can definitely work around them and do it anyway if you're a little bit crafty. I do actually recommend you don't, though, because I think I mentioned this in a previous video. Construction scripts are executed in editor, and more specifically whenever you load assets in the content browser. So if something goes wrong in the construction script or event pre-construct of an UMG or widget, your engine is going to crash upon trying to open the content browser. And so it is something to be extremely careful with. It is a very useful tool. It can also absolutely mess up your project, which brings me to my next point, which is to make backups often of your projects, especially as it grows bigger and more complex. But yeah, let's refrain from doing any morph target related things in the construction script, just because apparently it's prone to breaking for no reason, and you know you don't want something finicky like that to just break your project completely. So we'll create a new function here to apply morphs, really. And we're immediately going to connect it, because I always forget to connect it, and then I wonder why it doesn't work. Cool. We can close these, all of these. Good. And so right now the only morph we have, because we haven't done anything on the wheels, the only morph we have is onto the wing. And you have a node called setMorphTarget, where you can very easily just type in the name of a morph and a value for it. So let me reopen the mesh here, in case you've already forgotten the name of your morphs. And let's play with the width right now. Set the value to 1. You can see now your wing is super wide. Like, really, really wide. Oh, what do we have here? Oh, I'm sorry. This was meant to be plugged into false. Let's make sure I didn't make the same mistake in the set primary. Yes, I did. I sure did. There, fixed. I'm also going to play with the height and tilt. Now the maximum tilt I have is a pretty aggressive. I don't think I'll be using the whole range of value here. Let's go ahead and put 0.5 in there. Also, don't forget to plug a skeletal mesh here into the target. Okay, now as you can see, I have a super tall, super wide, very tilted wing. Let's actually play that. Yeah, the thing is huge. It looks ridiculous. But yeah, you have it. Now all that you've got left to do is to create some sliders in the UI for it. And yeah, apply morphs whenever these value changes on the UI. Let's go ahead and do that just for the fun of it. Open up the UI. That would be the main menu UMG. Let's add sliders. Now, I'm not going to make this pretty because I'm really just messing around here and showing you the ropes. Let's go ahead and add a couple sliders. I'm not going to bother really making them pretty or anything. I will give them names though. So slider wing width, wing height, wing tilt, and wing flap. All of them are set to be variables. Can I select all of them at once and do what I should have done first, which is to set the ranges for them? Oh, yes. Min and max value 0, 1. That's cool. Orientation horizontal, step size 0.1, 0.01, sorry. We don't need that much precision, so let's go ahead and set that to 0.1. Nope. I wish I could really change the size of that handle, but yeah, who's got time for that? Whatever. And the event we're going to use is onValueChanged. We'll do that for all 4 of them. So they are sliders right here. That was wing height. So we still have wing flaps, width, and where are you? Slider tilt. Oh, wing tilt. And I'm guessing I should have added a few input variables to the function here for the morph. Yeah, I forgot how I called the morph for the flaps. So let's reopen that. And flap height, actually. Great. Plug in the target. Go ahead and create some inputs here. That one would be width. Okay. Another one for wing height. Now keep in mind, you might eventually have a lot of them in there. So I'm not just going to call them width and height. Because I might have wheels, you know, roof scoop or whatever. So let's go ahead and future-proof that function and give it some sensible names already. There. You can set default values for those, all of them. I'll leave them all to default 0. Good. And then we can go back in the main menu here, grab our main menu display vehicle, if I remember correctly. Yep, display vehicle. go ahead and set morph. Apply morphs, sorry. Apply morphs. So for the wing height, I was too eager to squeeze those together. We're gonna need some breathing room in here. Something like that. I guess I should be setting float variables as well to be using in those empty slots so I don't reset every other morph to 0 whenever I modify one of them. So let's go ahead and promote all these to variables. Now obviously you would want the wing to be a data asset, just like the wheels, and then put that into a strut, just like we did for the cars, so you can store the wing data asset and 4 float variables for the morphs, and then add that to an array so you can save it in the player inventory, same as we did for the kind of a mix of what we did for the wheels and for the vehicle. So you have a strut to contain all the variables you want to modify at runtime, and then put that into an array as you did for the wheels to have an array of available wings that you can put on each car. So do a bit of a mix and match of the different last tutorials if you want to be able to make a proper wing swapping system. Which would mean you would actually be selecting the current wing index, grabbing that off of the array, and grabbing the float variables that are already set in there to populate those 3 that you're not currently modifying, instead of actually creating float variables like I'm doing now. So but hey, just having fun here, not making an actual tutorial. Sorry about that, if you wanted to see an actual tutorial. Okay, now we have float variables. We'll need one here for the width. Tilt. By the way, I'm holding down the control key when I'm dragging them into the graph to have a getter, and you can hold down Alt to get a setter. So wind flap scale, control, there you go. Easy peasy. Also, whenever you change the car, so into the vehicle button, you want to get the variables for all of these morphs and set those float variables, and also set the slider value. But I'm not gonna bother with that. So you need width, tilt, and then height for this one. This one again. Height, tilt. Also, we're not saving those into the game instance, into an array in the player inventory, so we're not going to reapply those when you play with the car. They're only going to work in the menu, which again, fine by me. I really just want to have sliders in there that I can use to modify the car. Doesn't actually matter to me that you can get to drive the car with them. And so yeah, that was it. Bit of a bonus video on how to use morph targets to further complicate your vehicle customization system. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked this video, and I will see you soon in the next one.